called Johnny Got His Gun, and it's a story about a young man, Joe, who enters World War I because his buddy told him to. Basically, what happens at the beginning of the story is that he gets struck by a bomb, and for some strange reason, he survives. And throughout the whole story, he is just lying there on his hospital bed without any essential body parts. No ears, no eyes, no mouth, no nose, no arms, no legs. You get the idea. The only thing he can try to do is shift his body weight and tap his head so that he can tell people what he wants. Throughout the book, the author decides to show out the story in two different ways. One way is when he's asleep, he talks about his past and what happened to him before the bomb incident, like his girlfriend, his friends, and all that stuff. In the present, he talks about his experiences in a hospital bed, the conversations between the nurses, the doctors, changing his clothes, stuff like that. When he is awake, the story is in the present and talks about how he feels in the bed and his irritations and new problems he's found because, well, he doesn't have any. He can't move anymore, so that's a pretty big problem. This book constantly switches between him sleeping and remembering about the past and his personal conflictions. He starts in thinking of suicidal thoughts because think about it. If you were in a hospital bed and couldn't move, couldn't see, couldn't hear, like, it's worse than death. It is. He starts in thinking of suicidal thoughts, but in the end he realizes that even though he can't do anything a normal human being can do, he can actually change the world for the better. In the end of the book, he realizes that he wants to show his horrific figure in a museum so that anyone who enters a museum will be able to see the scars and horrors of war and realize that war is not really worth entering in. He asked the nurse for help using Morse code, which I don't know if any of you know, but it's basically tapping your finger or like making slow rhythm beats to translate each beat into one letter, and then you can spell out a whole sentence. Joe, the doctor comes in after the nurse tells him that he needs help, and then the doctor asks him what he wants to do in his life. Joe responds, finally, for your information, he has been tapping on his head for a few years. That's a very long time to tap your head. Because the doctor basically asks him what he wants to do in the future. He tells him that he wants to be displayed in a museum, but unfortunately, after all his hard work of tapping his head, the doctor refuses his request because it's out of regulations. They want to like recruit more soldiers, and they don't want to they want more soldiers. And so basically in the end of the book, they inject dope, is what they call in the book, like medicine to make you drowsy, and then he falls asleep, and that's what happens in the end of the book. Okay, so here's my passage. Of course a lot of guys were ashamed. Somebody said, let's go out and fight for liberty. And so they went out and got killed without ever once thinking about liberty. And what kind of liberty were they fighting for anyway? How much liberty and whose idea of liberty? Were they fighting for the liberty of eating free ice cream cones all their lives, or for the liberty of robbing anyone who they pleased whenever they wanted to, or what? You tell a man he can't rob, and you take away some of his liberty. You got to. What the hell does liberty mean anyway? It's just a word like house or table or any other word. Only it's a special kind of word. A guy says house, and he can't point to a house like that house to prove it. But a guy says, come on, let's go fight on for liberty. And he can't really explain what it is, and you just decide to go for it. He can't prove the thing he's talking about, so how in the hell can he be telling you to fight for it? I think this scene is really important because it shows how important Joe values life. He decides that entering World War I was stupid because He only joined for moral reasons like liberty and honor. Joe was thinking that fighting in wars for these types of values was worthless. And people don't realize how meaningless liberty is that they were fighting for. Many people always say that fighting in a war is very honorable and stuff. You have a lot of honor because you're fighting for your country. But after you get shot and die, you're just a dead body rotting away. Is there any honor in that? I don't think so. What am I trying to say is that once you're dead, there's no honor left. You're just a rotting body ready to get eaten by like maggots or something like that. You can't touch or feel liberty. It's just a word with no meaning. And it's used as an excuse to get people like Joe to fight, to risk his life to fight for he doesn't even know what he's fighting for. In their minds, they think that nothing bad will happen. Oh cool, it's a war, let's go. We might kill some guys and stuff. But it's actually a lot more worse than they think. And they can't even get killed. And in reality, people get killed in seconds. Realizing that more people are going to die or get severely injured like him, instead of wanting to die in a hospital bed, he wants to change the world for the better by showing the horrors and scars of war to the public so we will not commit the same mistakes as he did. I feel really proud for Joe because even though he's a dead person, he shouldn't be able to accomplish anything. He wants to try and make the world a better place and hopes everyone will not have to fight for war. It's pretty sad to hear it come from him because as we know, if Joe could see what happens years later in the war, World War II happens, many other wars, even wars right now are conflicting in this current moment in time. It was a pretty sad ending, but realistic and a very interesting read.